Welcome to Behind the Doors, the podcast where we take you behind the scenes of residential real estate investing. I'm your host, Dan Noma Jr., here with my co-host, Marvin Cruz.
We're here to help you unlock the best strategies and practice for investors. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro looking to scale your portfolio.
We've spent decades navigating the ever-changing world of real estate, and now we're sharing everything we've learned to help you succeed.
From off-market deals to cash flow management and everything in between, we'll break it down and bring you actionable insights that can make a real difference in your investments.
So get ready to open the door to new opportunities and take your real estate investing to the next level. Let's dive in.
Hey, what's up, Dan?
Marvin, what's happening, my man?
All good.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever tell you this, but man, I actually enjoy talking to you over this podcast because you know more about real estate than most, right? Like, so, I'm going to give you your flowers right now.
Oh, please. I'm blushing now.
Yeah, but, your industry is changing. And you know why it's changing? Because AI is starting to get involved.
Yep.
And not a lot of us know about AI. So, and I know you do, but what is AI in real estate investing? Because, for the most part, it's basically technology that's analyzing data and it's using Wi-Fi to ultimately help us make smarter decisions at the end of the day.
Yep.
But give us your definition. What is AI in real estate?
Well, I think, when you think about AI and the power of AI potential in real estate, I think back, like I had a firsthand seat at what it was like before we had any machines to be able to analyze data.
Right.
So when I first started working with some of these large institutions to buy, my first order, if you remember, to buy with Blackstone was 2,000 homes, right? So, Dan, we need you to buy 2,000 homes. Okay. We started buying properties on the MLS. And the way we were doing it was literally like going in, looking at the property on the MLS, taking that information from the MLS, putting it into an Excel model, and then hit the button, and the button would tell us whether or not this worked or it didn't work. Right. So we populate, the current market value of the asset, the rent,
right,
the taxes, the HOA, all of that stuff. And then what we thought the renovation number should be, and based on the pictures.
Yep.
And then we would go, okay, this one works, send an offer. But then, in order to find one, you looked at 100 to find one.
Yeah.
And that's just how it was. Like, I had, racks of people in our office, dozens of them, and out of the office working remotely, just hunting and pecking, looking for the deal.
Yeah.
Because you literally had to look at 100 to find one that worked. And that's just how it worked. Now we do that in 90 seconds. Like we do an entire market like that in 90 seconds. I can surface everything in 90 seconds. And that's like, so I've seen it. Like I've seen this thing shift significantly.
So you're probably excited because not only is it faster, but you probably won't miss opportunities because AI.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right? So
it's
the benefits are huge.
Yeah, just think about like the predictive tools, right? Yeah. Like rent. Rent forever has been, a question mark.
Right.
Of like, well, what is a property supposed to rent for? Well, he who has the most data is going to have the most accurate rent. Not telling you it's going to be the highest rent. I'm just telling you they're going to have the most accurate rent.
Yeah.
So the MLS, in most markets is a fraction of the rental data. It's a fraction. So if you're just relying on the MLS, you're looking at a fraction of the rental market.
That's right.
So how the heck do you make a decision on a property knowing that you're just looking at a fraction of it? It'd be like me going, hey, Marvin, this house is worth $500,000, but across the street, I don't have any information on those properties. So I don't know. They could sell for 200, but everything on this street sells for 400, and you got to get comfortable with that. Like, I don't know, and that would leave me as an investor very unsettled, knowing that a lot of inventory, most is traded off market in the rental game. And therefore, like, how do you get your hands on that information so that you've got a full picture?
Yep.
And then analyze and, view properties based on that. I think that's where like this stuff starts to get really, really interesting. And then beyond that is just like the trends, predicting where markets are going. Like the big factors that affect rental rates, for example, are like vacancy and supply. So if there's a bunch of supply in a market, it could look like the greatest deal in the world on paper. But if you're not looking at the supply in the market, you're behind the curve. You're looking in the past.
Yeah.
And therefore, like you might buy a property thinking it's going to rent for 2,100 that really ends up renting for 1,800. And that delta's significant. And you've got to be really careful of that stuff because that just means that the market had oversupply. Therefore, the rental rate was going to drive down. It had to, and that's just what has to happen. But you got to have tools to be able to show you where those trends are.
Yeah.
That's how you start to get really interesting.
Yeah, you got to have tools. And I love this stuff because this kind of levels the playing field in a sense. So, I don't want to lose the mom and pop investor because guess what? The institutional buyers, they probably already know about this and using it. But now you should not be afraid of AI. One, it can help you identify things you didn't see coming. It can help you with, you could take your property and see if you're undervaluing your property as well, right? So this thing is definitely going to level the playing field and basically give smaller investors the same pro tools that the large institutional buyers is already ahead of you. So if you're listening, I am telling you firsthand, AI is going to be your best friend, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one example of that is, you start thinking about like, let's look at like a market like Phoenix. Like today, there's 26,000 homes on the market in Phoenix. Well, let's say you as a family have made a decision that you're going to invest in real estate in 2025. The normal behavior would be to contact your local real estate agent, and then the agent would set you up on a search in the MLS, and then they would send you deals. Then it would be up to you then as the buyer to look for those market trends to make a decision on whether or not this is a good investment or not, right? But think about like what data do you have? I've already told you that less than half of the rental data is available through the MLS. So, so you've already missed half of the rental data.
That's right.
Right. And then you also don't know anything about the supply data, right? You've got no information on that. And then let's take it a whole step further. Like how many properties do you really want to go look at to just find the one that is going to work? And most of the time you go like you see pictures of a property.
Right.
When you get there, something is missed as a result of like just based on these photos, But when you can take into account the fact that like an AI tool can take into account, the vintage of the roof and know its useful life is about to come up, or the vintage of the AC unit and go, hey, red flag, this unit is like, it's 10 years old, but it means in another 6 years, you're going to be replacing this unit. The refrigerators, right? All the appliances, all of the things in the house that are going to be big ticket items, you can now start to predict when you're going to have to reinvest into those things. And that's when you're like investing. I mean, that's like now you're really thinking, which is like now, like you can do that in real time versus having to go tour every property and then figure out how old stuff is and go, man, this is a great property, but all the appliances are really old and I'm going to have to replace them next year or in 2 years. Like that, you can handle all of that with AI and then just now be looking at the one or two properties that make sense. And that's where I think you just save a ton of time. Like I don't know. Some people love shopping for houses. I don't like shopping for anything, so I don't go to malls. I don't do any of that.
We got to feel it and touch it.
Right. Yeah. I don't like that, as a tool. I would way rather like narrow it down to 2 or 3 and then just go select those 2 or 3 because all of the data and analytics said that these were the best 3 investments I could buy.
I love that. And you know what? You don't need a PhD in computer science either to figure this out. So if you're sitting on the sidelines thinking, ooh, that is too much for me, or you're intimidated by AI, one, it's not expensive. It's actually, a lot of it's free for you, right? I think about other tools out there that's public. One, obviously, easystreetoffers.com. Check that out because we use AI and analytics. But Zillow AI, Redfin Analytics,
Yep.
these tools are out there for you, and you can just plug and play into your investment strategy, right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of these long language models, like, a lot of them are built on top of OpenAI.
Yep.
That's like everybody's kind of predicting, building something on top of that widget, which is fine. That's how that works. It's cool. But, so most of them are like super easy.
Yeah.
Like one of the ones that we're working on now that I think has got a lot of ground to go is our ability to take photos and turn them into renovation budgets.
Mm-hmm.
That now changes the need to send inspectors out to properties, right? If you get the right photos and the video of the property, the machine isn't going to miss anything.
Right.
It doesn't miss
It
stuff.
don't miss. Right.
So therefore, like your predictability is going to go up and be higher,
Right.
And so I think like stuff like that is awesome.
Yeah.
Like it is just awesome.
Yeah, think about this for those investors that are still on the fence. Imagine having a virtual assistant that just never sleeps, right? And to your point, never miss an opportunity. You just wake up. Imagine a platform that just wakes up and says, these are the properties you should invest in.
Right.
Don't waste your time on the other stuff. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you love to have that back in the day when you were shopping for 2,000 homes?
That's why we built it.
You would have saved a lot of cost too.
That's
right?
why we built it. I mean, it wasn't built out of like, I thought that at some point we would have users on our platform.
Right.
I built it for me. I was like, okay, well, I need a way, at the time, you got to remember too, there was like 70,000 homes on the market.
So you
we first started buying.
to look through.
Oh my God, yeah. Like, 68,000 homes. I remember being like looking at that and it just never went away. It was like 68,000 for so long.
Yeah.
And, how do you find the best opportunities of that 68,000? I mean, we didn't even get through looking at the 68,000, before we had to try other ways to try to find houses because it just took forever. It just took for so long. And now the idea is like, I can do that in 90 seconds, surface the best investments up. And those are all retail buys. Everything else is all a retail purchase, and let the retail market, swallow that stuff up. But under my economics and my model, I only want to look at these, and I can just narrow it down and look at those. Like that feels pretty good. That feels good.
So, let's talk about risk. And I don't want to talk about risk with using AI. I want to talk about it from the standpoint of how AI could prevent risk. So it's almost thinking of it as like if you knew it was going to rain today, you would wear a jacket, right? You would take your umbrella. That's what AI can do. It could predict downturns in investments, or, hey, I'm expecting this downturn, or this is a red flag of major problems when it comes to investing. So you said something earlier about taking photos.
Yeah.
And having AI predict cost to renovate. That's a huge win because repairs could be costly if you don't do it right. Right.
Yep. Yeah, the vintage of all things mechanical in a property matter. And, what's funny is like a lot of our housing stock across the country was all built in the 70s. So a lot of that stuff is now coming up to, 25. It's old, right? I mean, this stuff is old.
And say that again. So most of our inventory out there in the U.S. is built 1970s.
70s was like a big boom in building, right? So
keep going. Sorry, because that's important.
Mid to late 60s, into the 70s, you saw a lot of housing stock get built, and so that a lot of that stuff, if you think about the age of that stuff, I mean, that stuff is now getting 60, 70 years old, and so pretty quickly in our lifetime, we're going to see that inventory be 100 years old.
Right.
Today somebody talks about a home that's 100 years old and you're like, oh my God, their home's 100 years old.
Right.
Well, now like in city centers that we're used to living in, Scottsdale, wherever, a property that was built in the 70s, pretty quickly is going to be 100 years old. And so what the heck, like that property needs a lot of updating in order to get there. And so in order to like maintain that asset, and, because the location's still great, the location's great, you've got to start to look at like, okay, well, like not just the roof, but is your tool you're using telling you
Yeah.
the vintage of the, say, sewer line coming into the property? Like, when did the city update that sewer line most recently? And if they didn't, okay,
Yeah.
you may as well just budget it, because it's going to happen. You're
Right.
going to have to do it.
Yep.
These things don't last forever. So it's important that, like, you're doing the research, but then you're like, well, how do I do all of that research? Power lines to, the box, the power box, to
Yeah.
the sewer line, to the
Oh.
plumbing, to the
Oh.
electricals,
Yeah,
to
so much to think about.
the panel and all of that stuff. You start thinking about all of that. You're like, how do I know?
Yeah.
Like, how do I know when it's going to fail? You don't,
Yeah.
right? All we do know for sure is that it will. And, but if you had at least a sense of the risk of buying that property as a result of the vintage of a lot of that stuff, I think it would help a ton. Like, that's a huge thing. And now you can do it without a lot of headache.
Yeah.
And that's super nice.
Yeah.
Is being able to actually get the data and be accurate too, because it doesn't miss. I mean, it literally does not miss.
No, it doesn't miss at all.
Yeah.
And it's not, AI just isn't about buying and selling. It's could actually manage your asset more effectively than you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
Right. And then not to mention the repairs, just taking photos and saying, this is how much it's going to cost. Listen, look, I know contractors, you have personal connections, but sometimes everyone can't prepare for everything. Right. And this is where just all we're saying is use data and tools to help you make sound decisions. Right.
Yeah.
But the coolest part is you can plug in your strategy into AI.
Yep.
And it will spit out what you're looking for. So you can customize it for you.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we do all day long, right?
That's
Is we take every asset in the country and we surface the best investments to the top.
Yep.
And we just wait for the right ones that the seller also aligns on the idea that I want to sell it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the math. It's not like we're reaching for opportunities or deals. We can't.
Yeah.
We're waiting for that supply to come in, and when it does, it's a great investment opportunity. And that makes real estate investing less fuzzy.
Yeah.
And takes a lot of the risk out of it. If you had to rely on, because the alternative is not good. I mean, I've lived it. It's not fun. If you wanted to invest in real estate and
You get it wrong.
yeah, or you're just waiting, you're relying on somebody's like opinion.
Yeah.
Like I always say to people, I'm like, anything we do is not subjective. We do zero subjectivity at all. Like there's no subjectivity in what we do. And they're like, man, like none? And I go, none. Like there's literally none. Every data point we quantify with data, and it's a completely objective number. I'm not married to the information. I'm just giving it to you, right? It's just the information is what it is. The numbers are what they are. And, if you start thinking about it that way, you take a lot of like the pain out of it. You know what I mean? Like I've met with a lot of, people selling their investment properties that said to me, man, when I bought this, my agent said it was going to rent for this. And I don't know, every time I'm like, yeah, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. They told you that, right? But that agent wasn't responsible for managing it. And so they got their commission. They went on, and they're happy. And the thing probably performed for a little while. But then because nobody was looking around the corner, systems started to fail. The roof went bad. All of these things. Next thing I know, this thing is a money pit. It's no longer an investment. It's actually a detriment to me. It's a liability. Get this thing off my books. And that's how things go sideways, is if you just don't have enough information. I don't think anybody's like doing it maliciously. I think they're just doing it based on the information that they have.
Yeah.
So my question to anybody that, you'd be buying stuff from is like, what kind of data are you using? Where do you get it from? How much of this is like subjective or your opinion versus, objective? Because you can buy real estate today without any opinion whatsoever.
Yep.
And, all of it is data driven and it can be really, really predictable.
Yeah. If you can do that coupled with taking your emotions out.
Yeah.
Because I remember you said once when we were laughing, you'll buy a doghouse if the returns came. So you have no emotions attached to real estate investing.
Yep.
You're like, if the data says buy, I buy.
Right.
Right?
That's it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome. That's awesome.
that's how you got to go, right? But I think the big thing is like the accuracy.
Yeah.
I mean, even from like a manager's level, it's hard to manage people,
Yeah.
and it's hard to manage them to do the same thing over and over again in a way that's like predictable.
Yeah.
But the computer, once we train it to do something once, and we set the rule, it does it the same way every time.
Yeah.
I just know it's going to do it that way. It doesn't have bad days.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a day where it's mad. It makes like a sour decision. It doesn't do that.
Yeah.
It has no emotions. It's very happy every day. It just does its thing. And I don't have to worry about, a bad day or a distraction causing an error.
Yeah.
And I love that. I really love that. Yeah.
I love that. That was a good analogy. So imagine you had AI and imagine you had your person hunting for you and you were out there wanting to buy 10 homes. I guarantee AI is going to come back with something different than that person you sent
for
out
sure.
there. Especially if your person isn't using AI and data.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I do want to remind folks because you touched on it earlier, and that's if you're out there just looking at MLS and trying to make a sound decision, you missed half of what's going on. There's so much inventory out there that is being purchased that doesn't make public record, right?
Right.
But AI, companies like our company, we pay for this data.
Right.
And AI and Easy Street offers, we pass that information on to you for absolutely free.
Yep.
So there is your tool. There is your insight. There is your AI, right?
Yep.
So make sure that you're definitely getting involved. So I would say, research beginner-friendly AI tools too. Is my advice to folks that are just on the fence with AI or a little nervous. I like to think Easy Street is a very easy beginner-friendly tool. Yeah. Would you agree with that? I know you were going to say yes.
We've tried to make it as user-friendly as you can. I mean, how do you take 3,700 different data points and display them to somebody like that wants to see very little, all the way up to somebody that needs every data point? That's hard. That's a tough thing to try to come up with. So I think we've done a decent job of, deep linking a lot of like the deeper data so that if you want it, it's there.
Yeah.
But if you aren't, that savvy yet, or it's not something that's important to you, it's not distracting. And I think that's a big deal. You touched on something I think is important is as you think about like where you get the data from, the thing that kind of has been the blocker for a lot of people investing on a market is the fact that they didn't even have access to like MLSs in those markets. Right. And this sounds like the most simple thing, right? When I tell people how much capital, human resources, and money was spent to normalize 40 states of data from MLSs, every MLS has their own system, right? And we had to roll all of that up into one common system and make it all look the same. Mm-hmm. That what they, the technical word for that is normalize. How do you normalize all that data?
Right.
Like without the power of like the AI tools to do that, I mean, it's extensive work to do that. And it's opened up huge opportunity as a result. That it just wasn't possible before. We just couldn't, no one could get their arms around it to normalize that kind of amount of data. It's a big deal. So I think the cost of it's going to start coming down. You're going to start seeing the cost of like these AI products come down a bit as they run more efficiently, and I think that's where you can really start to take advantage. But the big thing for me really is, I love a lot of things about all the AI stuff. And because I don't really want to go see any of the assets or anything, like I just don't, nothing about it is attractive.
Right,
I bought a house recently down the street from me and I didn't go look at it. I just don't, to me, that's not solving my puzzle. My puzzle is just a math problem. But what I was able to figure out now is like what's my risk? And now I can make a decision,
That's right.
not just on like the math.
Right.
I can go, man, where is my risk level on this thing? Based on all of the factors that are gonna, play into the fact that it might end up costing me some money,
Yep.
like to own this thing. And then I can make an assessment on that, like that. Like I can do that in 90 seconds. That's amazing.
Yeah. I love that. I think if you're an investor, you got to go back and ask yourself why you're investing
Yeah.
and what's your end game, your math. And if you're a flip, you're probably going to look at it from a profit standpoint. After I flip this home, I want to profit, take home 40, 50K. You're a long-term investor, you're probably looking at it from a yield or a cap perspective. Either way, that's the game,
Yeah.
right? Now, there's so much out there that you can't keep up with. To your point, water lines, power lines, etc. Let AI do that for you. You can
Yeah.
easily take this tool and plug it into your strategy and it spits out. Wouldn't you want to know the home that's going to give you the most returns?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you just want to know that?
Right.
Right? That's huge for me.
Yeah.
So I tell you, the future of real estate investing is here and it's powered by AI.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. Anything scares you, Dan? Like anything you're worried about with AI?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I've read a lot about like how you can teach it to give you bad information.
Yeah.
It seems so far so good. Like I've not seen any like major like negative impacts of the tools yet.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think Elon has been very public in the idea that there needs to be someone that kind of governs like what you tell the machine. It's only as
Fact checking
smart.
AI now.
Yeah, it's only as smart as what you tell it, and
Yeah.
so you got to make sure it's learning the right way. But no, so I don't have a ton of fear in it.
Yeah.
I just think like stuff like that before we didn't think about is going to get so much more fun.
Yeah.
Like the other day I was on the phone with an investor and, they were sharing with me that, they wanted to be in an area that was up and coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean to you? And they were like, well, it means that there's like a Starbucks. And I go, okay. So if there's a Starbucks, like how close? Well, within walking distance. And I go, okay.
Yeah.
Like now I can actually do a search in our system and tell you which properties have a Starbucks within whatever distance you say. So
That's
if it's like half a mile, I can go, hey, all of these properties are within a half a mile of a Starbucks, and then break it down even further. And then these are the ones that need X amount of rehab. And these are the ones that have a little bit less of a risk profile. And then these are the 5 that have the best school score and probably are the best investments as a result of like where we're heading. And they were blown away. They were like, how do you know that? Like, how'd you figure that out? I'm like, somebody much smarter than me put the data set together. We just acquired it, and that's what helps us make those sound decisions.
Yeah, I love that because I always talk to investors too. And then some of them, I don't want to bag up to a commercial building, or I need to have a property on walking distance to the beach or on a corner lot.
Yeah.
Well, AI helps speed all this up. Otherwise, I'd spend hours trying to find this. And by the way, I still got to answer their biggest question, and that's the return that they're looking for.
Yep.
While you're walking to Starbucks. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's end today with some call to actions as it relates to getting involved in AI. And so, Dan, I think the first one, and you can attest to this, but I say you research beginner-friendly AI tools. Would you agree with that? Just to make sure you're aligned with your goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to get used to, how the machine outputs the information to you.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, most of them are. There's a ton of them out there, and I think unless you're going to like get into programming and engineering your own stuff, most of the stuff that's built on top of OpenAI is super user friendly.
Yep.
It was designed for everybody in the US to be able to just use it.
Yeah. And just like everything, it's evolving fast.
Oh yeah.
So don't be afraid to partner with someone.
Yeah.
Or just let the pros do it. Let the Easy Street do it for you. That's what we're here for, right?
Yep.
All right, Dan, closing remarks on AI. What do you think 2025?
Man, I think it's going to be a big year for AI and AI tools. I think you're going to see a ton of new technologies, not only with like acquisition, but optimization of your portfolio. Like how do you squeeze every dollar out of the investment?
Yeah.
How are you managing your books and keeping an eye on all of that? to even down to like, how do you pick your tenant and why you should pick this tenant versus that tenant. There, all of those tools are out there.
Yeah.
Like they're just not mainstream yet. And I think what all of this stuff you're going to start seeing, in the next year, 18 months, starting to be mainstream because it's becoming the norm. Like I don't really use Google so much anymore, right? I'm using OpenAI and I'm just asking my questions to that because that's how I'm seeing everything now, and it's just become a lot easier. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Doors. We hope you found today's insights valuable for your real estate investing journey.
Remember, real estate success doesn't happen overnight, but with the right tools and strategies, you can build long-term wealth and create passive income.
If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with others who are passionate about real estate investing.
Don't forget to follow us on social media for more tips and exclusive content.
Until next time, keep unlocking new opportunities, and we'll see you on the next episode of Behind the Doors.